everybody, and welcome back to the third video in our series that we are calling All About Our Expediting Trucking Business. I know it's a mouthful, but this is the third one. The first video, we talked a little bit about how we decided to get into expediting and how we sort of left our careers at house. And then in the second video, we talked a little bit about what we actually had to do in regards to requirements with FedEx and getting our CDL licenses and everything before we even started. And this video, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into a topic that a lot of people getting into this have to think about, and that is choosing a fleet owner or someone to drive through. The way that the expediting business sort of works is either you own your own truck, which for us just starting out, we decided that was not the way to go, or you drive for somebody that does have trucks, and those people are typically called fleet owners. And it could be somebody that has a truck that they don't drive, they just own the truck and they let you drive it, up to some companies that have hundreds of trucks on with FedEx.
And we are with FedEx, we are contractors.
Yes.
So we're not company drivers. So that's why the fleet owner or you own your own truck, because we have a separate contract with FedEx, as far as because we're contractors.
Yeah, and like we always say with these videos, this is our experience, and I think, as I said in the first one, your mileage
may vary.
But this is our experience with FedEx Custom Critical. So, like Judy said, I honestly do not know of anyone that drives for a fleet owner as an employee. I think there are some out there. We are what's called a 1099 independent contractor.
For tax purposes.
When we started, the fleet owner we ended up driving for did not hold taxes out. We were responsible for those. As owners today, we are still responsible for those, so we have to take care of all of that. We don't get a paycheck from someone that has, all that stuff taken out. So when we first decided, we were ready to go, going to do this, now we needed to find something to drive. And I had been online on Expeditors Online and in the forums, and we had actually talked to some folks on the phone. And the one piece of advice we kept getting from everybody was drive for someone first. You want to drive in a fleet owner's truck, give it a year to see if you really like doing this. Because
some contracts are for a year.
Right.
The fleet owners want you to drive for a certain period of time.
When we first started, it was for a year, and the second owner we drove for was for a year also. But like I said,
for your contract.
Yeah. But the piece of advice, like I said, everybody said, drive for somebody. Don't go out and buy your own truck, which for us was not an option anyway.
Yeah. Well, and Jim hadn't driven truck for many, many years, and I had never driven, so we really weren't sure if this was the route, God was planning for us. We didn't know if we were, this was the place that we were going to be for a long period of time.
Right.
So
by driving for a fleet owner, that would give us the time to figure that out. I never forget this. Someone told us, this is not for everybody. Not everybody's going to be able to do this. And they said, if you really want to find out what it's like, take a weekend, grab you some water, grab you a little bit of food, find a closet at your house, you and your wife go in the closet and sit in there and stay in there all weekend long. That's pretty much about what you're going to be experiencing out on the road. I mean, of course, we can get out of the truck and go and do things, but if it's bad and it's snowing, nasty out, yeah, you're basically stuck in a closet.
And just for the record, we never tried that.
We never tried that, but that was a piece of advice that someone gave us. And so it was probably fairly accurate. I mean, maybe a little bit more severe.
So driving for a fleet owner first, and that's what we chose. That's
Yes.
the route we were going to go. We did not want to have our own truck.
So we had, in talking to people and looking at the online forums, people were quick to point out that there are very good fleet owners, and also there are some very bad fleet owners that will take advantage of drivers. So, that was our first priority, was to find a good fleet owner. And by that, we basically mean someone that will pay us on time, someone that will keep the truck maintained, and someone that will basically work with us and be a partner with us instead of someone. In other words, we didn't want to be micromanaged. we had no idea what we were doing,
None.
but we didn't want to be someone telling us that you have to take this load. If you don't take this load, you're going to get fired, because there are owners that do that. And
Yeah.
that's those three things.
We wanted to learn from someone.
Right.
So we wanted an experienced fleet owner who knew the business and knew, how things worked. And to be able to teach us things, because we didn't know what we were doing or what we were getting our hands into, except for what we had researched.
We still don't. 8 years. Maybe we know a little.
Yeah.
But there was one name that kept coming up over and over again. They were a large fleet, and I should say a little bit about why we were looking for a fleet owner that was financially stable. When we started, this was basically 2011. The country was still coming out of the nastiness of 2008 and the recession we went through.
3 years later, we're still working through it.
We were still working out of it. We never really saw some of that stuff, but people lost trucks and people went under because the freight dried up. There was nothing to haul. So we wanted to be, my mind, if we drove for a larger fleet owner, they would probably be able to survive rough times, because we didn't know what was going to happen.
And we didn't know the business well enough to know, small versus large.
Right. And for us, the country, it was really sort of iffy. We could have went right back into a recession. So we wanted to be with someone that we felt was financially stable. And so, we asked, we did our research, we talked to people, and we eventually sort of settled on one fleet owner that we had heard nothing but good things about. They paid on time. They worked with you. They were understanding. They had okay equipment. We'll get to that. They had decent equipment, and they did maintain it, and so that sort of checked all the little boxes, I guess.
For our first boxes.
Boxes.
After we got started, we found more boxes.
Yes, we found there was another page where there were more boxes on that we didn't even think about when we started. The company we settled on at the time was Expediter Services, and they're out of South Haven, Mississippi. They, I believe at the time, and maybe still are, the largest fleet owner that has trucks leased on the FedEx Custom Critical. They had both surface trucks, which are dry freight trucks, and they had refrigerated trucks. And from everybody, again, almost everybody that we knew that was at FedEx was in white glove, T-Val, temperature services. So that's where we wanted to be. And talking to people, they basically said, that's where the money's at. So that's
looking at our finances and talking to those drivers and owners who were doing that, looking at our personal ones versus the business part of it, we knew that would be comparable for us, as far as money goes.
You need to match your personal finances up a little bit with what the owner expects out of you. You need to sit down and figure out what you need. When we had a number, we knew what we needed to live on. And
that might have come a little bit after the fact, when the Expediter Services, and there are a lot of owners out there that do it. It's not just Expediter Services, but they'll say, you can just stay out 3 weeks and you can go home for a week, and that works for the owner. That works for their finances. But we found out that didn't work for our finances.
No.
So we had to plan. We had to think a little differently. We tried that for the first couple months. And I was just like, there's no way. And especially when we first got started, there was no way.
Right. You got to remember, we were first starting, and we started in a 2007 Kenworth T600 with a factory sleeper on it. Some of you will know what I mean when I say the red Kenworths. Expedited Services bought a bunch of these trucks. They're all straight trucks. They were set up for pretty decent trucks at the time. They had standard sleepers on them, which in the case of a Kenworth was an 84-inch sleeper. Pretty spacious, pretty roomy for, the tractor and trailers that were out here. Mm-hmm. Nothing really compared to this. Just to give you an idea, we had no TV. I think we had to buy a very small microwave.
Yep, that fit on top of the closet.
We had a refrigerator that was about that big. That you could put 6 cans of Coke in, and
that was about it.
A couple of sandwiches, and it was full.
Yeah.
And so no running water, no sink. We did have a porta potty. We did take our porta potty with us
Yeah,
in
and
the truck.
that was called a studio sleeper,
Studio sleeper.
which reminded me of the studio apartments. You
Right.
know, of trucks. Your studio apartment of trucks. Now you know
Uh,
we're in not a mansion, but now we're
Bunk beds. There was an upper bunk and a lower bunk that folded up into a couch that you could sit on, which we basically left down all the time. So we didn't have a nice table like we have here. We had no counter space in the truck. If you want to see what our sleeper looks like now, I mean, there's a video. I'll sort of link it up here that we did the other day, a tour of our sleeper. So as you can see, to wrap this up a little bit, the sleepers and stuff we have today are nicer, bigger than what we started with. And that is led us down the road to have some different questions. Our second checklist, I guess. But one of the things that we definitely wanted to look at pay. The majority of teams at the time, and I guess probably still today, actually get what's called a 40-60 split or a 60-40 split. And basically, what that means is out of how much the load pays, the drivers get 40%, and then whoever pays for the fuel gets the fuel surcharge normally. Different owners have different pay plans. The way our original pay plan worked is the load paid so much money, and then there was fuel surcharge money on top of that. So we got 40% of what the load paid. Expediter Services paid for the fuel, and they got the entire chunk of change for the fuel surcharge. So if a load paid $800 and the fuel surcharge was $200, we would have gotten 40% of the $800, so $320. Expediter Services would have got the rest. We found out over time that under that plan, essentially, if a load paid $1,000, we got about a third of that. That's just the way it worked out.
It just with the
So,
calculations.
we at the time found out very quickly, like Judy said, that if their Expediter Services plan was stay out for 3 weeks, go home for a week. But when you're home for a week, you do not get a paycheck.
You don't get any money.
You get no money unless you're driving the truck. And so they were okay with us doing that. We found out really quickly we were not okay with us doing that. Eventually, it sort of turned into we would go out for 2 months and maybe come home for a week, maybe a weekend.
Yeah, but and everybody's personal finances are different, and that's where you have to figure it out. And also with the owner's financial, what they have to keep their business running. So you don't want to go home for a week, knowing that the owner might not make it. They have to share with you their minimum, and that's another discussion you want to have with the owner. What is it that you expect from us to make, in a month's time?
Right, because it's a two-way street. We had expectations, but the owner has expectations and needs too, because they're the ones with the truck payment.
Right. And equipment to keep up, and fuel to pay for.
Exactly.
Depending on which way that goes.
Exactly. Basically, as drivers, we had no expenses other than our food. So if something broke, called Expediter Services, they fixed it, and they were very good about that. I mean, anytime I had a problem, they fixed it. Take it to the garage and have it fixed.
The other thing we forgot to mention about is work accident insurance. Some owners will pay and others will not.
Right. You're required to have that from FedEx. It's basically similar to workers' comp if you're working at someplace. This covers you if you're injured in an accident. And like Judy said, some places, some owners pay that, some owners don't. And that's an additional expense. And it can be quite pricey. I mean, it's several $100s a month, depending on, some people base it on a percentage of your revenue. But, we had all these considerations. And honestly, when we first started, we had no idea what we were doing.
None, zero.
The other interesting thing is when we first started, the only truck that Expediter Services had available at the time was a refrigerated white glove truck that was capable of being T-Val. And we got put in that truck. So we instantly got thrown into white glove.
Which at that point in time was not a thing. You know,
It had just
it just
changed.
started.
It
It
had
used to be you have to be doing
Oh,
something
it used
six
to be
months.
you had to like go through a process to get accepted in the white glove. You actually had to have like write a letter to the whoever's in charge of it, and you had
But
to
you were in
be.
good standing and all
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
sort of a sore point because there were some people that weren't happy that people like us that just walked in off the street got thrown into
We
white
kind of kept
glove.
that quiet for a while, right? You know,
Yeah,
for about our first three or
but
four
times
years.
have changed now. Basically, if you're in a T-Val truck, you're white glove to start with. You have to be with temperature control services. So we got thrown in that truck. Expediter Services is really good to us. I would recommend them to anybody that's starting out, even to this day. There was one downside, and Judy mentioned this earlier. We wanted someone to show us what was going on, and they really didn't do that. They were stretched very thin. They had a
At
ton
the
of
time,
trucks.
I think things have
They
changed.
did not have as many T-Val trucks as they had surface trucks. I could call and ask them questions, but
We didn't know what questions to ask
yeah,
sometimes.
it's like, so we were literally right off the street. Here's the keys to the truck. Go have fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty
But
sure things have changed.
yeah,
I'm sure.
things have changed. And the other thing is when you are looking for an owner, if that's what you want, someone to just hand you the keys and say go, that's the kind of owner you want. That's fine. Everybody's different on the type of owner that they want and that they mesh with. They get along, and like Jim said, with the partnership part of it, you have to find out what works for you, and just know what you need, or what you and your co-driver, husband, wife, whoever winds up driving with you, or solo, who I don't know what that is, but we're coming from a team experience.
Right.
um but our experience is we just want to make sure the fleet owner's financially stable,
Yes.
and that they paid on time.
Yes.
The
We
dis-
never had a problem with that. Expediter Services paid us everything on time, every time, perfect.
and you need to talk to the owner about the contractual, what the percentage is that they go by. Do they pay any bonuses? Because there are some owners out there who pay bonuses. When they pay,
Right.
because sometimes it's different than when FedEx pays. Because they have to do their books after FedEx does their books. Whether or not you want, what kind of equipment you want to start out with. Do you want to be in white glove? Maybe you're looking at owners and that owner doesn't have white glove trucks.
Right.
If that's what you want, or if you want surface, just those are the kinds of things you have to have in mind. And think about your own finances, how much time you want to spend at home, because there are fleet owners out here who are like, yeah, go home, whenever. And then there are fleet owners who need you to stay out longer,
Right.
for longer periods of time, and to set up your own. Okay, when are you going to be home, so that we know how to have their cash flow in their own pockets working too.
In 8 years, the longest we have ever stayed out at one period of time is 12 weeks.
And the other part about asking about an owner too is about the sleeper. If you want specific things in your sleeper, um, that's something you want to take into consideration, because you're the one living out there on the road.
Right. I know that there's some fleets today. A lot of times when they buy trucks, we wanted a single bed sleeper, and there are some fleets that have bought trucks that have bunk beds in them, because not everybody that drives these trucks is the same household team that would be comfortable sleeping in the same bed. We know folks that are in double bunk sleepers. If you're a team, husband wife team, would you be comfortable with being in one of those trucks? That's what Judy and I started in.
Yep, we did,
We
and
had
we lived through it.
we lived through it, and so it's just you just got to try to find someone that matches up to you, and I know that's hard to do. The biggest piece of advice: talk to people that have driven for that owner.
And also keep in mind that when you do talk to people that drive for said owners, sometimes there is just a personality thing that
Right.
you wouldn't have issues with. Listen carefully to what kinds of things they had problems with them, and say, oh, is that something I can handle, or is it something? Because some people don't like to be micromanaged. And, we came from having bosses, so it wasn't a big deal, but
She was okay with it. I hated it.
But the owners we drove for,
Right.
were not
Well,
that involved.
I
So.
guess what I'm saying is talk to as many people that have driven for the owners as possible. because, like you said, there could be just a simple personality conflict between the people. They may be fine to drive for, but that person may not have gotten along with the owner. Or it could be a personality conflict with the owner, and no one gets along with them. But you just got to sort of find out works. Get a contract. Very, very important. Get a contract. In this world, you would love to be able to rely on a handshake, and that's how it is. But you're just setting yourself up for nasty stuff. Get a contract. Talk to people that have driven before them before. People come off the road for various reasons. They're just tired of it, health reasons. Something changed at home. They need to get off the road to take care of it, or they're just tired of it. But talk to those former drivers that are off the road. I think sometimes the ones that are off the road might give you a little bit more unvarnished opinion of folks, because the people that are out here still driving, may have to eventually go back and drive for
Which
somebody.
brings me to another thing that you might want to think about as a fleet owner too, and have that conversation with a fleet owner. Let's say I have, someone winds up getting really sick at home. How do we handle that, or
Right.
how will we work that out? And probably the majority of the fleet owners will say we'll work that out when it comes to it.
It's been our experience with folks that we've known that they've been able to do that.
Yeah, or you get sick really, and you need to take some time off and surgery or something like that, and every owner, may handle it differently, and they all may handle it the same way. I don't know.
But like you said, this is our experience with one fleet owner. We eventually left under good circumstances, because we found our second page of check marks. There were some other things that we didn't really consider up front, and those became important to us.
We wanted to stay healthy on the road. That was our number one thing, and that was hard to do.
The biggest thing is, after about 6 months, we decided this is what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so it would have been different if we would have said, no, this I don't want to do this. But we decided we did want to do it, and we wanted to make the best of the situation. So we'll cover that. Do we want to cover that in the next video? You want to cover it right now? I'm asking. I'll edit this.
I don't know. What did you ask?
Just going to talk about why we decided to go to less in the second page of recommendations that we had. Do we want to talk about that now, or we want to save it for the next video?
I don't care. I don't know how long this video is getting.
Well, it's only restarted once, so it's about 15 minutes right now. 16 minutes. So this is
106.
We'll skip it. I'll kill it here. So, are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know if you want to even mention that. Well, I don't know if we'll talk about that another time.
I think we will eventually, maybe somewhere in there. I'll cut all that out. So,
okay.
So that, we hope you've got some insight into our process. At the time, it can be confusing, and looking back on it, I'm still not for sure what all happened in what order. But just sit down with someone. The best piece of advice I can give anybody is to sit down with someone that's been through this, and find someone that will mentor you through this process, and can give you some actual advice. It can be scary, and because, like I said, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Spend some time at truck stops too. I mean, you might, if your truck stop near where you live has some custom critical trucks, or, well, I shouldn't say expediter trucks if we're generalizing here, and just that we've literally, and throughout the years, have had people come up and just start talking to us. Well, what is this all about, and how do you do this? And people who just are,
I can think of one instance.
One instance, yes, we know.
Very important instance to us. We have made lifelong friends by that person just wandering up at a truck stop out in California and talking to us one day.
Yep.
It's amazing. They drive for FedEx now.
Yeah. But anyway, just talk to people. That's where you find out most of your information, and just maybe sit and have a bite to eat with somebody and spend a couple hours. We enjoy that part of what we did.
Right.
When all throughout these 8 years, if there's somebody that's interested in doing this, or someone new, or someone even who's been in it for longer than we have, that we can learn things from, we just like sitting and talking about the industry, and and how things work and what we do. So that's why we decided to do this series. You know, that was
Right.
part of it, just so we
Right.
can help other people.
Well, yeah, it was mainly about our story, what we've done in expediting. But we hope maybe someone we can help some folks out. Like today, we know fleet owners, and I would not hesitate to recommend some of those folks in an instance. But I'm not going to do that here. So we just know too many. And that gets to be the problem. We know so many people. We know
It
so
would be
many
hard to say, "Oh, go try for this person."
that are good fleet owners. At this point in time, it would be really difficult to recommend one over another. But
there's a lot of really good fleet owners
which
out there.
which is good, because you don't hear so much about the bad fleet owners anymore. We know some folks that are very well known, and from all we can tell, we've never driven for them. They would be awesome. So anyway, we'll maybe dive into that some other day in the future. Probably not, but So anyway,
we need to wrap this up because we gotta go get a load.
we have to go get a load. Yes, indeedy. So again, thank you for watching. Please like and comment on the video if you have any questions. You can always leave us a message, and we'll try to get back to you. And don't forget to subscribe. Ring your little
Ring. You're gonna let me do it this time?
Yeah. And we'll get to see you in the next video.
So long, everybody.
Good night.